Okay, next, let's talk about ordering fractions. So if we want to put them in order on a number line, now that we know how to compare fractions, we should be able to do this. So let's just take a look at the number line. We've got a number line that goes from 0 to 2, nice and spread out, just because fractions are less than a whole, so they're all going to be in between the whole numbers. If they're in this section, it just means you've eaten less than one candy bar. If they're in this section, you've eaten one whole candy bar plus some, but not enough to say 2 whole candy bars. If one of them does get up to 2, you've eaten 2 whole candy bars. All right, so when ordering fractions on a number line, first thing I do is just logically kind of think through it. If I need to start comparing fractions using cross multiply or something else, we can do that to really get down into the details. But let's just take a look at the first one. So if I have 1/6, where does that go? Well, there's no whole number in front of it. That means it's less than 1, so it's going to be in this section. It's not an improper fraction, so that also means it's going to be in this section. And what this means is that if I was to divide this section into 6 pieces, you would have eaten 1. Now the problem with just drawing all this every time is going to get really messy. Plus you have to almost be a robot to draw all these lines perfectly because each space has to be exactly the same size as the other spaces. I'll give it a shot. So if I did 1/6, I would have to divide this section into 6 pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the best I could do. They're pretty close to being, roughly the same size each. And if I eat one of the pieces, so I'm going to start on 0 and eat one piece, jump over to the first line, that's where that 1/6 will go. So roughly in between here and here, the 1/6 is kind of near the 0. I didn't eat very much. It's definitely not halfway. It's definitely not more than halfway. That's the other thing I do. I think, well, is this fraction going to be somewhere before the halfway mark, on the halfway mark, or after the halfway mark? Think logically first, and then fine-tune it. 4/5. So if I think logically, 4 is more than halfway of 5. So I know it's going to be somewhere in this section. And if I really wanted to draw it again, I'd have to redraw all these with just 5 spaces. So it might be 1, 2, 3, 4. Those weren't very even at all. But 4/5 would be somewhere over 1, 2, 3, 4, somewhere over here. It's more than, if I look at halfway, halfway is going to be around here. So 4/5 is a little over halfway. It's not quite another whole yet, but it's somewhere in here. Now you can see my paper's getting all messy. So let's just forget all these little lines now. Let's look at the next one. 1 and 1/4. 1 and 1/4 means I've eaten one whole candy bar plus some. So I know it's going to be in this section somewhere. So if I was to mentally divide this into 4 sections, 1/4, if I did here's halfway, half of halfway, it would be somewhere around there. So this would be 1 and 1/4. So that's one whole candy bar plus a little more of the next one. 3/8. 3 is less than halfway to 8. 4 would be halfway. So if I said 4/8, I know it'd go right halfway in the middle of these two. It's not an improper. It doesn't have a whole number in front, so it's just less than 1. And it's not going to get to the halfway mark. It's a little less than that, so it's somewhere around in here. So I'm going to stick it right about here. Now, both of these are less than halfway. If I want to be sure that I've got them in the right order, and I shouldn't put this one over here, you can cross multiply, you can get the bottom numbers, the denominators the same, and figure out which fraction is bigger. I know that this 3/8 is more than 1/6. All right, that's that one. Now we have 3/2. That's an improper fraction. That's bigger on the top. That means it's past the 1. So I'm going to go ahead and change this. Let's see, I'm going to do it over here. If I do 3/2, I'm going to change this. 3 divided by 2 is 1. You have 1 left over. The bottom number stays the same. It's not super clear, but so 3 over 2 is the same as saying 1.5. Well, here's 1, and halfway between this one should be about here. So my 3 over 2 would be right there. That's that one. 7/8. 7/8 is looking logically to me like, wow, you've almost eaten the whole candy bar. You just had a little tiny piece left. So it's really close to the whole thing. So I'm going to put that really close to this 1. Didn't quite eat the whole thing, but close. 3/4. Okay. 3/4 is less than 1, but it's more than halfway. So it's somewhere in between here. And now I've got a whole bunch of other fractions in here. So I'm going to have to do some comparing to make sure I get the 3/4 on the right side of the 4/5, the right side of the 7/8. So I'm going to come down here for a minute and compare the 4/5 and the 3/4 and see which one's bigger. The bigger one will go on the right side of the other one. So 5 times 3 is 15, 4 times 4 is 16. So 4/5 is just a little bit more than 3/4. That means my 3/4 needs to go in front, just a little bit in front of the 4/5. Sorry, it's starting to look a little messy, but we're getting the right order. All right, we got one more. 6 over 3. Again, another improper. I know it's going to be past 1. So let's do the division. 6 divided by 3 is exactly 2 with no remainder. That means there's no fraction to go with it. The answer is 2. And there's my 2. So my 6/3 is the same as saying 2. So if I ate 6/3 of a candy, some candy bars, that means let's talk about that. If I've eaten 6/3 of a candy bar, you want to draw this out, your candy bars only have 3 pieces. Right, there's your candy bar. You've eaten 6 pieces though. 1, 2, 3. So you'd have to draw another candy bar with 3 pieces and keep counting. 4, 5, 6. So now you've eaten 6 pieces of a 3-piece candy bar, which means you've eaten 2 whole candy bars. All right, there we have ordered it. Not super clean. I put probably too many for this example, but I think you get the idea.